Hello, hello, and welcome everyone. My name is Melanie Naranjo. I head up the people team here at Ethena, and I am so thrilled to be chatting with Stefanie Burton, People Ops Director at Infillion, in our latest edition of How We Tackle People Stuff at Ethena. I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for chatting with us. We're always eager to highlight our incredible customers, learn more from their experiences, and share their stories with our wider community. And so really, I'd love to kick it off by just having you tell us a little bit more about yourself. Stefanie, how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So I joined Infillion about a year and a half ago. I've spent the last 10 years or so in various HR roles across kind of manufacturing, advertising, and now kind of moving into the technology space. So pretty fun ride.
Love that. And tell us a little bit about your company.
Yeah, so Infillion does a lot with kind of omni-channel advertising technology. So mobile advertisements, desktop advertisements, connected TV, even things like in-venue stadium experiences, helping advertisers really meet their customer in the different multimodal forms that are out there.
I would just say that's one of the things I really love about being in HR is that you could literally join any industry, and you learn so much about the different companies out there and what they're doing. It's a lot of fun. I'm curious to know, how did you come to learn about Athena? Because that's why we're on the call today, right? We're learning a little bit about your experience with us as a company, as a vendor. Would just love to know, how'd you hear about this and what problems were you trying to solve?
Sure. To be honest, I was trying to go back in my memory banks and remember how I first learned about Athena. And it's so tough when you're kind of in that mad scramble. I had a contract renewal with another vendor coming up, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is a problem. We have to fix it before we go through another renewal. We were really at that crunch time. And so basically had the need to very quickly find a new solution. And when Athena crossed my desk, I'll say it was very quickly narrowed down to one of the top contenders and then ultimately selected pretty quickly.
Oh, I love that. I'd actually love to dig in there a little bit because you mentioned that your last provider was up for renewal. And I think that's always a really tricky time for HR professionals because it's sort of like this catch-22 where maybe you're not perfectly happy with the provider, but the effort of having to implement seems so stressful and overwhelming that sometimes people just put up with something that's maybe a little bit subpar because they don't have the time or bandwidth. I'm curious to know what helps you sort of push over to the decision of, no, we're changing. And then what was that implementation process like with Athena? Was it as painful as people might think when switching compliance providers?
Yeah, I'll say without kind of naming my prior vendor, a little bit of a dinosaur in the space, right? One of the old guard. So one of the biggest issues we really had was the actual act of launching a training or keeping people enrolled and maintaining the records was so cumbersome that it honestly made me a little less scared of a new implementation because I knew like anything could be better than the amount of time and energy we were spending kind of managing the system that we were using. So basically, in kind of the discussions and the demos, we talked a lot about how it connected very well to we had actually just done a system implementation of Paylocity at the beginning of this year, so it was a very quick, like, we needed something that would connect with our tech stack that we already had and make that transition really seamless and smooth, in addition to kind of picking up midstream because we had people who had just completed the training under the previous system, and we needed to find a way to really kind of seamlessly run, build the plane while it was flying and keep things moving and compliant while we were continuing to move forward.
I love that. And am I hearing you correctly that you were manually adjusting things before?
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh
Yes,
my gosh.
yes. Everything required 20 steps, really to launch a training or to pull down a record or to really see where somebody was at. It was 16 clicks to get into the record to see if they had completed things. And oh my goodness, we're a small but mighty team here. Our people ops team is really trying to run very lean. So it was really important to me to find a system that could seamlessly integrate and just really pick up where we needed to start running.
I am so glad you made the switch. One of the things that we're like especially proud of at Athena is all of our integrations and automations. Like one of my favorite things is Team Insights, where you just like click a button and it sends reminders to all the managers, like, hey, here's everyone on your team who hasn't done the training. I just find, right, you're right, small but mighty team, but there's only so much you can do, and you having to lose so much time chasing people down or having to manually pull that report is just not a good use of your time. You've got more strategic stuff to focus on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think a big focus too for us was content. The dinosaur, the content was boring. It was really hard to get people engaged. And what we saw as a company is engagement and attention, right, for consumers and advertising. So to not have those congruent was really difficult for me. I really wanted to find a solution that was engaging to our employees, that they could really grasp onto and get excited about the content. As much as excitement as compliance training can be, I am getting a lot of positive feedback from people who are actually saying like, this is good. Like engaging to watch. And it's something that people are willingly going through the process of taking.
Can we just have a moment for that? Like, I think it is so rare for employees. And I'm like, who gives positive feedback on compliance training? That is amazing. And I'm so thrilled that you sort of said like, hey, I think that we could do better and looked out there. Because I find that a lot of HR professionals, me being one of them, I find that sometimes we sort of get in this rut of like, well, this is the best you can do. And we don't realize that it could be better, it could be faster. There are automations out there. There's higher quality content for these trainings. I'm really, really glad that you were able to find that with Athena. I'm curious to know if you had to list sort of your top reason for going with Athena, what would it be?
Yeah, I think, my process of narrowing it down, it was really those integrations was kind of a non-starter, right? Like I wasn't interested in entertaining anything that wasn't
Of course.
integrated. Then the second piece of that was really the ease of use, kind of the administrative dashboard side of things. How easy is it for me if I'm in there regularly, or my team members who are in there regularly? Employees are in it once. So, once a year, or however often, depending on what content they're enrolled in. Um, but beyond that, I think it was about the content, right? If I can actually watch this and I can laugh a little, right? There's some good things. There's some nuggets that I say, that is a good point. This is actually hitting on something that's a real, more modern issue, or something that's really engaging with the times and different challenges that are coming up in the world. I found that super, super important. And that was really kind of what tipped the scales, I think, in favor of Athena.
It's so fascinating that you talk about the admin experience, because I don't think enough of us talk about that. We're so focused on the employee. And of course, that's a big part of it. But at the same time, we have to be energized and we have to have the right tools in place to then better support our employees. So really, really appreciate that you were thinking about it from that perspective. So I have a question for you about your launch. So I see that you all took a phased approach to rolling out your harassment training with Athena. And so, in other words, only some of your learners got training at launch. Can you walk me through why that was important to you and how you were able to do this with Athena, while to your point, migrating training platforms? Because you had said we're sort of like switching over. There's some people who've taken it, some people who haven't. Well, why was that important to you and how did that process go?
Yeah, I think I'm really hesitant on overtraining. When we're a small organization, we're all trying to do so much. If someone had taken the training with the dinosaur 2 months ago, I didn't want to have to push them through that. I know that kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. So really, the phased rollout was to get us compliant with anybody, with the timing, with the rollout. So that was really the rationale behind it. But I did love how easy it was to kind of group the learners, to be able to put them kind of in these batches, to be able to get them to know that they're on track for when they're up for renewal next year. It's very easy to kind of slide them right in and keep everybody on the right cadence for their training schedule.
Overtraining is such a common problem. I hear about it all the time. I don't think people realize that it's not just sort of the extra burden that's placed on the employee. It's also sort of you as the people team lose social capital because you lose that trust from your employees. And then your stakeholders get upset too, right? Like, have you ever had like someone maybe like head of sales is like, why are you using up my sales team's time with this training? You already took it. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a real big problem. So I'm super glad that you all are thinking about it and that you were able to find a way to mitigate that. One of my, for anyone listening in, one of my favorite things to do whenever I'm rolling out required training is I do replace, don't add. So if there's 2 hours worth of trainings, then I get the leadership team to agree to cancel 2 hours worth of meetings. So maybe we might do, yeah, so we might cancel like one company town hall and then get every team lead to cancel one team meeting. And that way, like we have an added time to employees' calendars. Tends to work pretty well. People, sort of employees, if nothing else, appreciate the gesture.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the reasons that you shared in the sales process, I heard for purchasing our full catalog, because you've purchased not just harassment prevention, but all of our Athena's trainings, is that you were looking for a scalable training library that can adapt to Infillion's growing business. What kinds of training needs are you anticipating in the future as Infillion continues to scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a couple employees who are kind of testing out some of the DEI training that you guys offer in the unconscious bias. I think that's one that we're excited to kind of push out as a corporate initiative. Our internal culture council actually had been asking for it and had looked at an outside vendor. And I said, guys, we have this. Like, let's go through this and let's utilize this. So they're excited to get that launched and get a plan in place for rolling that out to all of our employees. We also are super excited to launch Equity 101 as we're kind of working on our employee ownership strategy and getting additional engagement there. I found that content to be some of the best that I've seen out there. And it's already in our library. So it's so wonderful to have that synergy already built in.
Way to go to Athena's content team. I'm so glad to hear that. Equity is a really challenging thing for a lot of employees, even if you think about it from an equity and inclusion perspective, right? There are a lot of people, I'm sure, that are maybe joining a startup for their first time, or they're the first person in their family to enter the corporate workforce at all. And so they just don't have that knowledge. And so to be able to throw that out there for everyone, and also I imagine it's part of people's company, their compensation strategy, right? And so if you've got this huge part of your compensation strategy and your employees don't understand it, it really is a missed opportunity. So I'm really glad that you all are leveraging that and finding some good use there.
Yeah, we're excited. It's one of those things we had looked at making a video internally and getting some people together. And it's like, let's look at this great content that's already provided to us. And it's really, really great to have it at our fingertips.
It makes me so happy to hear. All right. Well, Stefanie, I have just one final question for you before I let you go. My question to you, and I ask this to everyone, because I imagine there are a lot of people who are in this position where it's sort of like, I'm not that thrilled with my current provider, but again, it's a lot of work having to shift over. So what advice would you have for other HR professionals or compliance professionals who have a training that is getting the job done, but maybe not really working to their advantage or working as well as they would like? What advice would you have for anyone who's maybe considering whether or not they should look into other vendors?
Sure. I think there's kind of two parts to that. I think as HR professionals, we're always striving for continuous improvement, right? This is just the nature of dealing with humans and dealing with the workforce is you always got to be looking one step ahead. So yes, you can check the box, but there's always better things out there and it's worth exploring to see what options are there. And speaking specifically to the implementation, I mean, the implementation was really, really smooth. We ran into one little hiccup that's really based on our system limitations that we were facing, and the tech team was so great to work with and really, a very personalized attention, I feel, from Ethena in getting us onboarded, making sure that that process went really, really smoothly for us, and we're really grateful for it and think we're in a better place. So.
So glad to hear that. Stefanie, thank you so much. Really great chatting with you. Excited to keep this partnership going and hit us up if ever any questions come up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks all.